Israel hopes to finalize a comprehensive truce and hostage deal before Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's trip to Washington, D.C. next week. That's the optimistic message from Jerusalem after sending Washington a positive response for the hostage for ceasefire deal. Now on the table and awaiting a Hamas response. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Multiple reports say that Israeli leaders are advancing major efforts to reach a hostage for ceasefire deal with Hamas in the days ahead of Prime Minister Netanyahu's White House meeting with President Trump on Monday. Israeli television reports that Netanyahu is, for the first time, willing to engage in talks over a comprehensive ceasefire and hostage release framework in Gaza that would see the release of all 50 remaining hostages, living and dead. The Prime Minister said that when the war is over, the hostages will be home and Hamas will be gone.
לא יהיה חמאס, לא יהיה חמאסטן, לא חוזרים לזה, הדבר הזה נגמר. אנחנו נשחרר את כל חטופינו ואנחנו נכריע את החמאס. לא יהיה. לא באמת, איך אפשר להגיד את זה? זה שתי מטרות נוגדות, איזה שטויות. זה עובד ביחד, אנחנו נשלים את זה ביחד. בניגוד למה שאומרים, לא יכול, אי אפשר לעקור, אי אפשר אנחנו נחסל אותם עד יסוד.
Amid the optimism, officials caution that even if Hamas agrees to the framework in principle, it could still take time for the plan to be completed. There are still negotiations to be held over the release of Palestinian security prisoners in exchange for the hostages, the process of IDF withdrawal from parts of Gaza, and the entry of humanitarian aid. Israeli leaders confirmed that a deal could soon be reached.
Hamas still holds 50 of our hostages in crew captivity. The war can end tomorrow if it releases them and lays down its arms. We are serious in our will to reach a hostage deal and a ceasefire.
Ahead of their summit next Monday in Washington, Prime Minister Netanyahu and U.S. President Trump both sound serious about reaching a deal. The question now, is Hamas serious?
For the first time in months, there is true optimism Hamas will accept the terms of the Trump-pressured ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza. ILTV's Shosh Bedrosian is in Tel Aviv with the details. Shosh, what is Hamas satisfied with, and what are the reported terms of this deal?
Sivan, Hamas is reportedly satisfied with the assurances that are currently in this proposal right now, and Israeli and American officials are expected to hear from Hamas within the next 24 hours regarding their response on this current proposal. Before the weekend, it is supposed to come in. Now, for the first time, American and Israeli officials have true optimism that a deal could be happening in the near future here, especially because there has been so much ongoing back and forth for the last few months about where it stands with a ceasefire and a hostage deal. Now, some assurances include that Israel would not renew fighting as long as negotiations over the ceasefire continue. And there's a guarantee that Trump would announce the agreement and serve as its official sponsor. Now, Israel has approved the necessary conditions for a ceasefire, a 60-day ceasefire. That's according to President Trump. He posted that on his Truth Social account on Wednesday. Now, I want to make it clear, there are two different ceasefire and hostage proposals that are being floated around right now. One of them is that 10 living hostages and 18 bodies would be released in 5 different phases over a 60-day ceasefire window. Or the second option we are currently hearing about is that 8 living hostages would be released on the first day of this 60-day ceasefire, and 2 more living hostages would be released on the 50th day of the ceasefire, in addition to 18 bodies as well. Now, we know that Israeli officials believe that 20 hostages are still alive in Hamas captivity, and a total of 50 of them are still in captivity at this time. We also know that 2 American hostages are still being held there as well. That includes Itai Chen and Omer Nutra. Now, it's also been reported that Hamas will not be doing these humiliating ceremonies that they have been doing in the past for handover ceremonies when it comes to releasing these hostages. And we are also hearing at this time an Israeli team of negotiators will likely be heading to Doha, Qatar for this weekend. Sivan?
Thank you, Shosh. Also, we are hearing the families of two hostages, Maxim Harkin and Bar Cooperstein. They decided to release for the first time a propaganda video of their sons seen in Hamas captivity in Gaza together. The video was initially released by Hamas a few months ago, but the family refused publication of the video thus far. Now, they've released it, with the men saying in the video that they are 30 meters underground and that they don't feel human as the conditions are so dire and torturous. And joining me now to discuss all of this is retired Colonel Mary Eisen, Senior Fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism. Thank you so much, Mary, for being with us.
Sivan, always a pleasure.
Mary, why do you believe Prime Minister Netanyahu is now finally open, presumably, to a full ceasefire and comprehensive hostage deal ahead of his Washington trip? What changed?
What changed is the situation of what we've always called the head of the octopus, Iran. Iran as the backer of the proxies, Iran as the supplier of the proxies, Iran who fired horrific missiles also at Israel in those 12 days, but Iran that was put into a very different position in the aftermath of Israel's attack, those 12 days, and the American attack against the different nuclear sites. That is a huge difference. There was enormous Israeli backing. All sorts of people who do not support Prime Minister Netanyahu, who have been against him, who have been protesting against him, both during the war and before, came out in support of that attack. That gives wind to the Prime Minister. It shows that he has broader support to come about right now and do this. He still has to get through his own cabinet. There are voices in his own cabinet who say that they do not support such a deal. But I think that that broader sense of the support that Israelis have given to the Prime Minister, to the government in the actions against Iran, have given him the oomph, the capability to go through now with a very tough deal. It will be a tough deal, but with the Hamas to get back the 50 hostages.
Now, how much pressure do you believe is being exerted by the U.S. and by President Trump himself on Israel to reach this agreement?
President Trump is very active, as he was quoted before, on his social media site. And he has tweeted, or I should say in Truth Social, as he puts it out, not only on the need to get to a ceasefire, the need to end the war. That's not the same thing, Sivan. We keep saying ceasefire. Ceasefire is not the end of the war. It's ceasefire, the need to get back the hostages, the need to get in humanitarian help. But the same thing is that the president has also talked and written about domestic issues in Israel, meaning the prime minister and the trial of the prime minister. And I say that because I think that there's a very strong relationship there, and that the president is very much not pressuring Prime Minister Netanyahu, but actually giving him a back to be able to try and do this deal. It's not a contra aspect, it's actually a support aspect. I think it's very strong. They're very different from the relationship that we saw before. It isn't about good, bad, right, wrong, but right now it's about getting to a deal. And I do think that it's very strongly both the pressure, but also the fact that it's done willingly on both sides.
Now, turning over to Hamas, what do you make of these reports now that they may be satisfied with the latest guarantees and may accept the deal? What's changed for them?
Sivan, that's my big challenge here. I want to be optimistic, but I'm the one who usually looks at things through the eyes of Hamas, and I find it in my own way not easier, it's not nice, but I can predict Hamas actions sometimes more certainly than the Israeli Prime Minister, let alone the US President. And I say that because Hamas has been very consistent. And they say ceasefire, but what they're talking about is end of war. When we say ceasefire, we mean ceasefire. That's not the end of war. When Hamas says end of war, they mean not only ceasefire, hostages, yes, but with a very big price. The devil is in the details. But in addition to that, it's about leaving all of the Gaza Strip. And I haven't yet seen in the different leaks that are coming out from all over a clear definition that says that the ceasefires that Israel is stopping to fire, that we may do some realignment inside the Gaza Strip. I have not yet heard from Hamas a clear statement saying, and that means that we, Hamas, accept that the IDF is not leaving the Gaza Strip yet. And I say that because that's one of the gaps that I haven't yet heard. And I watch Hamas all of the time. For them, what has changed? They lost their Iranian backer. Not only that, but they lost Hezbollah, because Hezbollah, in not stepping up in those 12 days, also showed enormous weakness, and these definitely pressure that. There's a lot of pressure within the Muslim Sunni world for Hamas to get to a resolution. Everybody in the Muslim Sunni world wants the stability. So for Hamas right now, it's actually pressure from all over. There's a difference between Hamas in the Gaza Strip and the Hamas leaders that are outside of the Gaza Strip. And again, the negotiations are with the ones outside. So I take a deep breath. I am hopeful. I want to hope that Hamas right now is so pressured that they will take this step and do this ceasefire without what I call the end of war, meaning us leaving the Gaza Strip.
So as you mentioned, this key sticking point appears to be the IDF's phased withdrawal from Gaza. How critical is this issue from a security perspective? What compromise, if any, might be feasible here?
We showed before the quote of the Prime Minister just yesterday. He's been talking about it a lot over the last 24, 48 hours, that Hamas will be destroyed. In Hebrew, it's a different term that doesn't translate well into English, because it's about really destroying Hamas's capabilities, those with the military capabilities, but it's also about Hamas not being able to rule in the Gaza Strip. It won't be Hamastan, is the way that the Prime Minister put it. The military can do oh so much, Sivan. They can attack the military terror capabilities, the different type of weapons, the different positions, the underground subterranean arena, again, trying to always avoid any possibility of hurting, let alone killing any of the Israeli hostages. So as I look at that right now, the military action is absolutely part of the pressure, but there isn't something different right now that can be done. I think that we can stop that kind of military pressure, but stay there. If we move back in its own way, it both doesn't pressure Hamas, and I say it sadly, I so want to be the person who says, and we can just up and leave the Gaza Strip and nothing will change. Doesn't work that way. Having said that, at this stage, after, here we are almost 21 months later, big decisions are in the air, and I can hope that both the military and its pressure, together with everything else going on, will bring about a real deal.
Now, this heartbreaking video of the hostages, Bar Kuperstein and Maxim Herkin, was released after 636 days in captivity in Gaza. Might such footage impact public and political pressure on the Israeli government to finalize this deal?
Wow, Sivan, in a horrible way, I'm going to say right now, I actually don't think that that's what pressures us. I think that it's very important to see Baal, to see every single one of them, and to hear their voices. At this stage, and we all need to understand that, it's not about our desire to get them back, it's about the devil in the details. Everybody still has to remember that we are dealing with the devil. We are negotiating, albeit not directly, with Hamas. They're the devil. And I need these young men to come back. I need them all to be here right now. I need the closure for every single one of the 50 families, for the 30 families that they know that their loved ones are dead, but they need to be back. The situation is impossible. But I think that domestically, in that sense, that's not what brings about the change. I think that what's bringing about the change is actually the military capability of what Israel did in Iran, the military pressure of what the IDF is doing against Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and combined with that international, and especially, of course, the U.S. pressure that is saying, you've done, now let's get to the deal.
God willing, all of the hostages come home soon. Thank you very much, Mary Eisen.
Always a pleasure.
When Israel is under fire, the world watches. But we act. Since 1901, Jewish National Fund USA has stood with our homeland. From the moment missiles rained down, we were there, caring for children of essential workers, turning shelters into sanctuaries, providing fire trucks and more. Israel is our family, and you always show up for family. To support the people of Israel for today and tomorrow, turn to the trusted name in philanthropy, Jewish National Fund USA.
Israel Bonds, the heartbeat of solidarity, the powerhouse of support. When the Israeli-Hamas war hit, Israel Bonds stood tall, proving we're more than just an investment, we're a lifeline. Israel Bonds pledges to ensure Israel thrives and flourishes. Investing in Israel Bonds isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration for resilience, strength, and a better future for Israel. Join us and let solidarity echo through generations.
The IDF announced that a soldier was killed and 8 others wounded in continuing fighting in northern Gaza. The fallen soldier was identified as Sergeant Yaniv Mikhailovich, 19 years old, from Rehovot. The army says there were 2 incidents. In the first, terrorists launched 2 RPG rockets at a building in which soldiers were stationed. 2 soldiers were wounded. 20 minutes later, another tank missile was fired, this time at a tank operating to locate the terrorists from the earlier attack. Mikhailovich was killed, and the other soldiers in the tank were wounded. The army announced that it killed 2 terrorists, Musab Jilban and Abd Jijaj Barbach, responsible for killing 7 soldiers last week in Han Yunis when they threw an explosive device into the soldiers' Puma APC. They were targeted in an airstrike. Elsewhere in Gaza, IDF operations are ongoing. The army says it struck terror cells, underground routes, military structures, and sniper posts, hitting some 150 targets over the past 24 hours. This after a terror cell in northern Gaza fired 2 rockets towards Israel that were intercepted by air defense. The IDF has reported the arrest of an Iranian-backed terror cell operating in Israeli-occupied southern Syria. The late-night bus shows continuing Iranian efforts to cause terror on the Israeli border. More from ILTV, Steve Leibowitz.
When the IDF moved troops into the southern Golan after the fall of the al-Assad regime last year, it was to ensure that terrorists do not fill the vacuum caused by the removal of Syrian government forces. The army remains deployed in a defensive posture to protect nearby Israeli communities in the Golan from attack. The IDF also conducts anti-terror ops when needed. The army said that the elite 504 intelligence unit interrogations led to the arrest of multiple members of an Iranian-backed terror cell. The unit questioned operatives held by Israel, which led to the bust in the nighttime arrest operation. During the operation, the IDF located weapons, including firearms and grenades. The officer in command said that Israel is working to ensure that residents of the Israeli side of the Golan Heights can sleep in peace. Israel cannot allow terror organizations or hostile elements to establish themselves in the area. With U.S. backing in recent weeks, Israel and representatives of the al-Shara government have held mediated talks about potential normalization of relations between the nations, who have been at war since Israel's creation.
The United States is offering a new assessment of the recent strikes on Iran. According to the Pentagon, the joint U.S.-Israeli operation has significantly impacted Iran's nuclear program, delaying it by as much as 2 years. In a rare public estimate, the Pentagon has confirmed that Iran's nuclear program has been severely degraded by the coordinated strikes by the U.S. and Israel in recent weeks. Spokesman Sean Parnell told reporters the damage is substantial, setting Iran back by up to 2 years.
All of the conversations that we've had since Operation Midnight Hammer with our allies all around the world, but certainly also in the region, they say a couple of things. They share our sentiments about the degradation of Iran's nuclear program and the fact that we have degraded their program by 1 to 2 years. At least intel assessments inside the department assess that, and I think their intelligence shares that conclusion.
The strikes carried out in response to Iran's nuclear advancement targeted key facilities believed to be central to its uranium enrichment and nuclear development. The operation was described as swift, precise, and based on years of intelligence shared between the allies. President Trump, in an interview with Fox News earlier this week, took the rhetoric even further, claiming Iran's nuclear program had been obliterated by the mission. While experts say that may be an overestimate, they agree the operation has dealt a significant blow to Tehran's ambitions. Still, questions remain about what comes next. Iran has not confirmed the extent of the damage and has vowed to continue what it calls its peaceful nuclear energy efforts. Analysts warn the regime may seek to rebuild or retaliate, raising concerns of renewed conflict in the region. Meanwhile, U.S. and Israeli officials say they're closely monitoring Iranian movements and reinforcing deterrence in the Gulf, while the U.S. is also preparing for the possibility of resumed negotiations. A new bipartisan bill in the U.S. Congress could give Israel access to America's most advanced stealth bombers. ILTV's Mayan Hoffman has more on this.
In a rare show of bipartisan unity, Democratic Congressman Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey and Republican Congressman Mike Lawler of New York have introduced legislation that could allow Israel to receive B-2 stealth bombers and GBU-57 bunker-busting bombs from the United States. The bill, dubbed the Bunker Buster Act, would authorize President Donald Trump to make the transfer only if Iran is found to be continuing its pursuit of nuclear weapons, despite recent U.S. airstrikes targeting key Iranian nuclear facilities in Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. If passed, the legislation would give Israel access to a level of operational capability never before shared with a foreign nation, though not permanent ownership of the bombers or weapons. As of 2024, the U.S. maintains just 24 active B-2 aircraft, known for their long-range precision and stealth. Congressman Gottheimer said the move is necessary to ensure Israel can defend itself and to prevent Iran from rebuilding its nuclear infrastructure. Lawler echoed that sentiment, emphasizing the bill's intent to deter Tehran and bolster global security. The bill is still in its early stages, but if approved, it could dramatically enhance Israel's ability to act independently, shifting both military and diplomatic dynamics across the Middle East.
In the UK, Parliament voted to ban a pro-Palestinian activist group and declare them a terror group. Protests have erupted against the ban on the group Palestine Action that aims to disrupt operations of weapons manufacturers supplying the Israeli army. More from ILTV's Deborah Klein.
UK lawmakers voted overwhelmingly in favor of the measure that labels Palestine Action a terrorist group, with the ban on the group due to go into effect in the coming days.
The ayes to the right were 385, the noes to the left 26. So the ayes have it, the ayes have it. Unlock.
The action in Parliament came after two Palestine Action activists broke into Britain's largest airbase in central England, damaging two military aircraft. The group said the action was carried out to disrupt operations of weapons manufacturers supplying the Israeli army. If the ban goes into effect, it would be the first time in UK history that a direct action protest group has been labeled under anti-terror laws. The move in Parliament sparked protests outside the Prime Minister's residence on Downing Street in London. A full ban on Palestine Action means that it would be illegal under UK law to be a member of the group or support their actions, placing them on par with other terrorist organizations like the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda.
Do you know why Israel named its operation against Iran Rising Lion? The answer comes directly from biblical prophecy. You're looking at a military operation named by God. 3,000 years ago, Balaam couldn't curse Israel, so he spoke those words instead. Today, this very prophecy has come to fruition. In Hebrew, Am Kelavi means a lion nation, the same words chosen for this operation. Today, as Israel faces threats to its very survival, we witness the ancient words fulfilled. A people rising like a lion, not in aggression, but in the God-given right to defend their land. Pray for peace in Jerusalem and divine wisdom in these prophetic times.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 22 degrees Celsius or 73 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see sunny skies alongside hot temperatures, seeing highs of 33 degrees Celsius or 91 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel, and you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.